Welcome to the Money Mastermind Show. Let's talk money.
And welcome to the Money Mastermind Show. Too often we talk about financial horror stories and the sad things that tend to happen to us with debt and whatnot. But I don't think we talk enough about the funny side of personal finance. And believe it or not, there is actually a funny side. Tonight we have Joe Saul-Sehy of Stacking Benjamins to help us around the campfire and regale some stories that'll bring a chuckle to us. And I'm not quite selling it there, but
I was gonna say that's a high bar, Glenn.
Welcome to our show, Joe. It's always great to have you here.
I'm thankful you guys let me back in the door. That was very nice of you.
Yeah. We tend not to close it, so that's a problem. The rest of the Money Mastermind Show, for those out there, is Kyle Prevost of YoungandThrifty.ca, Miranda Marquit of Planting Money Seeds, Peter Anderson of Bible Money Matters, Tom Drake of the Canadian Finance Blog, and I'm Glenn Craig of Free From Broke. We got to do something to shorten that up there because that's a mouthful every week. But anyway, before we start, if you're out there and you're watching us and you're on our event page, if you have a funny story or you want to know about something that we're talking about, drop us a line there. We want to hear from you. So, we certainly talk about too much downer stuff, I think, with personal finance. It's summertime. Let's have some fun. What's out there that we could cheer people up with and kind of ease things along? What do you got for us, Joe?
You ever see?
I feel like you're set up.
Yeah, I feel like you're going, dance, monkey boy, dance.
I'm just happy you brought the world's largest board game collection back, Joe.
Oh, yeah.
It's always good to see you there.
Not bad. There are nerds that make me look like a little tiny nerd, but yeah, that's my nerddom right there. But you guys know how high cell phone bills are, right? I mean, your phone bill is through the roof. And a few years ago, I went on a camping trip. I was still a practicing financial advisor. For people that don't know me, I used to be a financial planner for 16 years. So I have all these clients that rely on me. And I'm going to Canada with my dad. I lived in Michigan at the time, and a bunch of his friends on this fishing trip. And I asked my dad, I said, hey, where we're going, which is near Timmins, in Ontario, which apparently, according to my dad, and he knows this very well, that's where Shania Twain's from.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
it's their claim to fame.
Yeah, and my
you
dad
gotta have one.
Obviously, everybody knows that too in Canada.
That's right. My dad and all his friends every night, let's go into town. And I kept saying, she's not going to be there, guys. She's not going to be there. And if she is there, she's not going to look at you. So, but anyway, so I said to my dad, I said, I really need my phone to work. My dad said, oh, yeah, no problem. It's going to work. So guess what? We crossed the border into Ontario, and immediately my phone doesn't work. So they have to drive into town, and this fish camp that we're staying at, I have this little card, right? I've got this card, the calling card that they go buy me, and I'm standing in the middle of this guy's living room that runs the fish camp once a day to talk to my assistant about what's going on at the office. Just painful. So about 6 weeks later, I'm headed to a conference in Toronto, and I already know my phone probably isn't going to work, but I decide to call Sprint and find out, if there's a way that they can maybe flip on service. And here's what happened. I call up, and this woman who said that her name is Jane, and I'm fairly certain her name wasn't Jane. Just
What's her last name, Joe?
Yeah. Her name was I'm way across the world from you, right? And she said she said, may I help you? And I said, yeah, I'm headed to Toronto, Canada, and I'd like to know if my phone's going to work. And she said, oh, yeah, I'd certainly like to help you with that, sir, but can I get some information from you first? Which, of course, meant she hasn't heard a word I said, right? So she asked me for everything. Yeah, what my blood type is, all this stuff. And finally, she goes, okay, well, she verifies that I'm me. So what can I help you with? Again. And I said, I'm going to Toronto, Canada, and I want to know if my phone's going to work because I don't want to pay this exorbitant phone bill. I don't want to get a phone card. And she said, okay, well, I'll certainly look that up for you. Where was that again? And I said, Toronto, Canada. And she said, okay, I'll be right back. and be right back. She was gone forever. I mean, this woman is gone for maybe, I don't know, 10 minutes. It felt like just forever. And she comes back and goes, "Excuse me, sir, where was that you were going again?" And I said, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And she said, and so what's this about? I said, I need to make sure my phone will work. I don't want a monster phone bill. I want to figure out what the best plan is. Oh yeah, okay, I'll be right back. She's gone again for like another, I don't know, 15 minutes. And she finally comes back and she says the most amazing customer service thing anybody's ever said to me. She said, "Sir?" I said, "Yes." Like, thank goodness she's back. I said, "Yes." She goes, "Sir, it appears that Toronto, Canada isn't in the United States." And I couldn't help myself. I said, "Since when?"
Everyone knows that Canada is America Junior.
Who knew?
Well, Canadians, about half of Canada would tell you that you guys could have Toronto and we wouldn't miss it.
Yeah, Kyle, you trade it for a player to be named later?
But would you rather trade Toronto or Montreal? Which one do you guys want to get rid of more?
It's not good. We got two Prairie Boys in on the show. We'll get ourselves in some trouble here, Tom, if we start answering these questions.
Yeah, that's true.
Uh-oh. We might have some new Americans on the show if we keep on down this line.
So that's my cell phone story to kick it off.
You must have hit her on like the first day of training. She didn't get to that page yet.
I don't know. Have you ever called customer support at any of those phone places?
The question is, did you ever get your answer? You still don't know if your phone works up the Toronto.
I did. I found out I had to ask for a supervisor, and it was going to be very expensive, Pete. It was going to be incredibly so.
Wow.
Nice.
Guess the dollar didn't translate well over there then.
Apparently not.
So what other funny stories do we have? Like what else has happened to you guys or crazy happenstance and such?
Well,
let's not all jump in there at once.
Well, so the end of my freshman year in college, I'm happy, I'm excited because I'm completing my first year living away from home, and I'm so self-sufficient and I'm so wonderful, and I don't need my parents for anything because now I have it figured out. And so I decided to go on a camping trip with a good friend of mine, and we got in the car and we were going to do backpacking. We were going to go into the Glen Canyon Recreation Area, and we were going to backpack it wasn't a very long backpacking trip, like 5 miles or something, into the shore of Lake Powell, and we were going to stay there for a couple days and then come back out. And it was going to be amazing and wonderful. And so as we were going down this dirt road in my Mercury Topaz, on a dirt road in my Mercury Topaz, we hit this big rock, and we were about 30 miles down the dirt road. So we were 30 miles. Yeah, we were 30 miles from, I call it nowhere. It's this town called Big Water, and it's really nowhere. There are no services there. It's just the marking point where you get off the main road and head off into something approximating wilderness. So we hit this rock, and it flattens the tire. And we go to change it, and he's ready to show me what an awesome guy he is. He can change a flat tire. And we get in there, and there are no tools in my car. All there is this little plastic thing, right, that you're supposed to fit over the nut and make it turn. The plastic thing breaks. And so now we can't get the spare tire out. We don't know what to do. So I start driving on this flat tire, and if I had known then what I know now about rims, I would never have done this thing. Because this is a dirt road. So we start going, but I'm afraid to go really fast. So we're going slow, and we hit this stream that we had crossed on the way over, and it's all muddy. It's this muddy stream, and I wasn't going fast enough to splash through it this time, so we're stuck. So the car's stuck in this muddy stream, and so we're like, screw it. So we pitched the tent. And then in the morning, get up with the sun and start walking. We start walking our 30 miles to Big Water.
With the car stuck in a muddy stream.
That's right. And so anyway, long story, not quite as long as it could be. We finally find somebody, we meet somebody along the way. They take us into Page, Arizona, and I call my mom because what else am I going to do? So I call my mom, and she gives me her credit card number and says, go ahead, have them tow the car and have them get a new tire put on it. And I'm just sitting here going, yeah, I can function in the real world without my mom. And so we get the give them the credit card. The guy has to drive out there in a rainstorm to bring the car back. And, 3 weeks later when my parents get the bill, my mom shows it to me. It's a $435 tow bill.
Oh, just the tow bill.
Just the tow bill.
Holy cow.
Just the tow bill.
And how bad was the rim and the tire and everything?
The rim was fine. I was really pleased. Yeah, they were surprised, but we did have to replace the tire, of course. But yeah, the rim survived. And the car, well, that's another story. What happened to the car later? We'll let somebody else tell that story now.
Well, my question, Miranda, is if he was really macho, you shouldn't have had him replace the tire. You should have had him call his mom to get money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way to go.
Real men call their mom.
That's right.
That's right.
That's funny.
I'm just picturing Miranda in the desert. Reminds me of past experiences we've had on the show, but
Flashback.
I was completely sober and mostly
speaking of funny
upset.
stories.
I did have a monster sunburn at the end of this ordeal because I just sunburned everywhere.
All sorts of life lessons for the
I
audience.
know.
But it was the best day ever.
No, it really wasn't.
It was certainly a day to remember, though.
I could tell you guys about how I won $25,000 a couple days ago.
Dude!
Kind of exciting. Well,
Wait, you won
not exactly.
$25,000?
Did it
That's
involve a
what
Nigerian via email?
Oh.
Well, no, I was at work. I was at work the other day, and my wife gave me a call. Very excited. I just got a call. We won this contest that I entered on HGTV or whatever.
Oh.
All we have to do is go in and go into this direct buy showroom and just bring in our IDs. Both of us go in, and once we get there, they're gonna. Apparently, well, no, we haven't actually won the $25,000. We're one of 5 people that have a chance to win the $25,000. So I'm like, this doesn't sound quite right. Something going on here. I'm already spending the $25,000 in my head. What we could use that money for. But then I'm like, well, something's not quite right here. So I get online. I search for HGTV direct buy contest. And I find out that this is kind of a scammy thing that they do to get people into their showroom. They get you in there. They tell you may have won a prize, and they give you a key, and you find out if your key fits the lock or something after they give their 2-hour-long presentation about their $5,000 membership that you have to buy in order to use their direct buying club or whatever.
Nice.
So
This is like a super Costco.
It's kind of a place where you can buy furniture and cabinets and other things direct from manufacturers supposedly, and supposedly it's supposed to be a really good deal. But when you go online and search for people
After the
using
first
this place,
$5,000.
right? Most people say, "Oh, it's a great deal if you're building a house or something like that." But then you go online and find all these reviews from people that are buying, They say they bought this $5,000 membership and then their store closed within 2 months and they could only buy things from online. They weren't able to see things in person, and they have like a 1 out of 5 star rating on the Better Business Bureau and all this other stuff. So
That's
Nice.
probably just the people who didn't win the $25,000.
yeah,
To be fair, I mean, it's just.
there's one guy that.
Well,
Usually
but-
when something good happens, you don't bother to write a review, right? It's only the negative people.
Unfortunately, it wasn't us, so I had to stop spending that money in my head and
So you went down.
move on with my life. No, we never actually went down because I did my research. was like, I don't want to spend 3 hours on a Saturday sitting through a presentation.
$25,000.
It could have been you, man.
The problem is
Unclaimed money.
they say you're one of 8 people to have a chance to win it, but you go online and there's about 50,000 people that have gotten the same phone call. So
Well, it's like those.
I don't think so.
It's like when you go to the car dealership, the car dealerships when they mail out all those keys and they're like, might have won a new car. Bring your key down and give it a try.
My kids love that.
Exactly.
Yeah, we got a direct buy article on our site that's pretty popular, and I'd say about half are like atrocious. And then from there, the other half, there's a few sort of neutral that were like, it was okay. They didn't get ripped off. And then there were a few that were like, if I'm a landlord and I have like 4 units or whatever, I think I save money using direct buy. So anyway, just to give people out there proportional, if they'll be happy with this, I don't know. And then there were a lot of people, especially from the States, that were like, even their low price items are like on sale at Menards for cheaper anyway. But it seemed to be a better deal for Canadian customers, judging from the comments on our site, just so people have a little bit of background.
If you're like the Canadian Donald Trump, it might pay for itself.
Yeah. So direct buy if you'd like to sponsor the Money Mastermind show in Canada.
Yeah, sorry guys, I didn't mean to blow
For
that.
landlords everywhere.
Send your showroom offers too.
Speaking of sales presentations,
Andrew didn't want his, so
yeah, well, sales presentations. I think Joe, you mentioned you might have a story about a sales presentation.
It was fabulous. We were going down to run the Disney Marathon with some friends, and I was by my rooms on Hotwire, and I get great deals, and every once in a while I'll get a really rotten room, and I just feel like that's just the cost of entry. You know what I mean? I've gotten a great deal so many times, I'm like, well, 1 out of 10 is just going to suck. So, but anyway, so we get this phenomenal deal for 2 families for this 2-bedroom condo to stay at just off Disney property. I mean, it is an amazing deal. And when we show up, like, these are great condos. So we go to the front desk to check in, and it's this beautiful room, and we check in, and the guy said, "Hey, we have to send you over to Maria because you won a prize." I'm like, it's our lucky day.
That's amazing.
So we go over to Maria, and Maria says, "Hey, what do you think?" And I'm like, "Oh, this place is great. This is fantastic." And everybody else that's with me, including Cheryl, my spouse, is kind of hanging back because they knew, and Joe's a moron, and he had no idea what was coming, right? So I'm like, "Oh, yeah, this is a great place." She's like, "Well, would you like to stay here every time you come down?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, the prices are like this." Absolutely. It's great. She's like, "Well, here's the deal. We can give you discount tickets to the park. Are you going to the park?" And I said, "Well, yeah, we're definitely going to the park." And she said, "Well, we can give you discount tickets." I'm like, "Oh, that would be great. Well, what do we have to do to get the tickets?" And she goes, "Well, I'm going to give you the tickets, and you'll get the tickets right after you go to this presentation where you learn about like buying into the place here." And all of a sudden I got it, right? Except the story I just told you was maybe a minute, and she had gone on for maybe 5 minutes because Joe just does not understand. And so she,
financial advisor, folks.
Yeah, I totally want you managing my money now.
how did I even last 16 years in that business? But so the woman said, "So what happens is you go to this presentation, and right after the presentation, we'll give you the discount tickets." And there's this long pause, and I said, "Well, what happens if I don't go? Do I still get the tickets?" And her face just turns bright red as she realized that I've completely wasted her time, just completely. And it's funny because our friends Doug and Jennifer, they were both like, "You were way nicer to her. We couldn't figure out what was going on." I'm like, "That's because I had no idea what was going on."
It was a good pitch.
This is
so bad.
fantastic.
Oh, the timeshare trap.
But did you get to stay in the condo from your
I did.
Hotwire booking? Okay.
We still did get the condo. It was fantastic.
So do you think that deal was like just a kind of a way to
Absolutely.
get people in, or they just kind of saw you there and were like, let's pull them in?
Oh, no. It was because the people behind us, it was the same thing. You got to go see Marie because you just won a prize. And
Wow.
I mean, looking back on that, I can't believe how happy I was, guys. I mean, I was like, I won a prize. I never win anything.
It makes you feel so special, doesn't it?
which is a different story. All my friends here in Texarkana are ultra marathoners, and one of my best friends runs a 100-mile race, and I like to pace them for maybe I'll go 20 miles. So I'll pace them for part of it. But believe it or not, they have ultra marathon film festivals. Like, who knew? There's something for everybody, right? Where you go and you watch movies about people running through the woods for 100 miles. So friends of ours are going to go to Little Rock, which is 2 hours away, to watch these ultra marathon movies. And just
Are they going to run there?
Are these movies actually like 100 miles long? Like, is it a 24-hour movie or?
What's funny is we're going to be there, Glenn, for 4 hours, and we're going to watch there's 10 of them. They're short movies, all different size movies, and they actually were pretty fun. They were more fun than I thought they were going to be. I was just going because a bunch of my friends were going. So we go to this theater, we drive 2 hours, we have a nice dinner, and we sit in this theater, and they have a first half of the thing and a second half. And between those, they're having a raffle where they're giving away ultra marathoner stuff. Everybody in our group is an ultra marathoner but me, and they have this one huge prize that you can win a free ticket to get into one of their ultra marathons that's already sold out. Apparently ultra marathons sell out. Like, tons of people want to do this thing. And so I lean over to Cheryl and I said, I never win anything. I know I'm going to win this. And guess who won?
Nice.
So it's non-transferable, I suppose.
Luckily, our friend Christy, she ran. It was the Columbia Gorge, 60-mile run, and so we got to go to Portland to support her run that I got her for free.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool.
I have a question for you, Joe.
Yes.
Do any of your friends have any of them done the ultra marathon that they do around Bear Lake every year up in southern Idaho, northern Utah?
No, but that's a fantastic ultra.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What makes one fantastic and another one not as fantastic? Because for me, fantastic would be like if it were all downhill and it decided to shave off about 80 miles or so.
There's a beer
Bear Lake
every
is very
mile.
scenic.
Yeah, like a beer slide for 100 miles, perhaps. That would be.
I think I'd like to drive that in my car.
Yeah.
I just go to Bear Lake to hang out in the lake. We go play in the water. I don't know that I'd run around it.
Yeah, any ultra marathon where they let you drive your car, right? That's the winner.
Or ride a bike, even.
Yes.
I can be the pace car.
I saw this thing this last week, which was an instant gratification race, and it shows it's a cartoon. It shows all these people on the starting line, and the starter goes, "Ready, set, go get your T-shirts."
It's my kind of race.
That's
the good one.
Hard
Then they
training.
just have to have the Instagram booth right beside. You can take the photo and prove you did it, right?
Your medal right next to it.
I made it the whole way.
To all my friends out there who keep posting every time they do a race through mud, paint, chains, cold, every other Spartan tough mudder, wannabe tough guy, like that's called a hike from my house where I live, okay? It's really not that impressive.
That's getting them out.
Uphill both ways.
Yeah.
Our rotten kids these days.
That's right.
Yeah,
Well, we
you guys got to
won-
have kid stories. Somebody's got to have a kid story.
Well, I was just gonna say we won tickets, round trip tickets from Salt Lake to San Diego, but it was a raffle I had entered just before we moved from Utah to Syracuse, New York, and so we couldn't use the tickets, so I gave them back. But then about 2 weeks after I gave the tickets back and couldn't ever have them again, then we decided we were going to move back to Utah, and I would have been able to use the tickets
Of course.
after all.
No good
I was
deed.
just like, that's right.
I've got a kid story about kids here, about how people will try to take advantage of you. I just read this in the local paper about a guy, his neighbor's son siphoned fuel out of his lawnmower,
Oh,
and then he put it in his car.
Oh my gosh.
And what he didn't realize is that the fuel mixture that was in the lawnmower does not work well in the car, and it actually ended up ruining the engine in the car. So now
I love it.
here's the part where the guy's trying to take advantage. The kid's dad then says it was his neighbor's fault, and he's actually insisting now that he pays for his son's repair bill for the car.
You're kidding me.
Oh my gosh.
For not having like a super high powered lawnmower that took like full on
Apparently,
89.
I don't know. It's a little ridiculous, but there's always going to be somebody out there trying to take advantage of you and who thinks you're going to be stupid and cave in and say, oh, okay, fine, I'll pay for a new engine in your car.
That dad's
gosh.
teaching his kid good stuff too, isn't he?
Oh yeah, good life lesson there.
It's like a whole interesting level of accountability. I was so wrong that the only way I could save face is if I say it's your fault.
Pretty much.
Wasn't me.
Nice.
That's
Ah.
crazy. My
I need
son
better-
one morning came downstairs. He was the captain of his high school swim team, and so the second he turned 16, we let him drive by himself because I didn't like waking up at 5 a.m. So he'd been driving for maybe, I don't know, 3 weeks, and he and his sister are twins, and so they both started driving, and he comes down at about 5:30 when he's supposed to be at practice, and he's shaking, and he wakes me up, and he says, and this is the best quote ever, "Dad, there's something wrong with the car." And so when you hear there's something wrong with the car, what do you think? What would you
It
think?
won't
Won't-
start.
won't start.
It won't start.
Flat tire.
It won't start.
Absolutely.
Won't start.
I'm almost
Big
afraid.
deal.
Yeah, so we start walking toward the driveway, and I said exactly that. I said, "So what's going on? Would the car not start?" And he goes, "No, it's a little worse than that." And we go outside, and my driveway goes uphill, and my neighbor's house is directly across. I have a neighbor directly across the road, and so here's the story that I found out. My daughter likes Glee. My son does not like Glee.
Uh-oh.
And my daughter had a Glee CD in on full blast. And my son started up the car, pressed on the gas, then decided to take the Glee CD out. Well, when he moved to take the Glee CD out, he put his head down a little bit. He thought he was stepping on the brake. He stepped on the gas. And because he's 16 and his brain's not attached to his foot, he thought he would step on it harder. So he ends up going up my driveway. Apparently my road must have a little crest because he had to have gotten airborne because my Saturn car that we were letting them use has decapitated my neighbor's brick mailbox, and it's sitting on top of it. Like
Oh man.
two wheels are off the ground. There's two
Oh my
wheels on the
gosh.
ground. The whole left side of the car is off the ground. The right side's on the ground, and the car's sitting like with it right on the oil pan in the middle of the car. Like every neighbor that came out, because of course every neighbor comes out to see what idiots we are, right? So every neighbor that came out, the first question is, well, we're in Texas, so it's, how do you do that?
Legitimate question.
We still have no idea. In fact, it's funny because so we call the wrecker and they come out with a flatbed like they usually do, that they're going to hook chains up to. And the guy stops and he gets out and he looks at the car and he realizes he's not going to be able to take it off the car because it's mounted. I mean, you're going to drag it off the top. So he takes out his phone. He takes out his phone and he goes, "Yeah, I got to call this in I got to show them a picture so they can see exactly what to bring out because we're going to need more help." And he takes a picture and I'm like, he's posting this to his personal Facebook page. Just look at what I saw this morning. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So, my son
Question
had
is,
So much.
what was wrong with that car,
forward
Joe?
to.
I tell you,
there's something wrong with the car.
it went airborne. Something wrong with it. I tell you.
The car would not go all the way over the mailbox. That's what's wrong with the car. It's a piece of dirt.
It was obviously shaped wrong.
Horrible
That
car.
it didn't fit over. Come on, Joe. I mean, you got to give him the right equipment.
The good they did, just to, not that you really care, but they took that flatbed and hooked up lines from one end, and then they took a wrecker on the other side that had a lift, and they hooked up from the other end, and they raised both ends at the same time and moved it over and set it down. And believe it or not, there was minimal damage.
That's amazing.
Wow. That must have like really tested the limits of those tow guys, though.
Yeah.
They were like, I can use like my just everything that I am. This is my whole career. I'm putting it towards finishing this job.
This is the final exam, baby.
Yeah, well,
It doesn't get more complex than this.
Well, they've got this picture, right? They can use it in all their advertisements. We can get you out of anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got
And now
this.
they've proven it, right? Proved it with my
speaking
kid.
of, I'm sorry. So speaking of expensive car accidents, there's another one I heard of through some friends with a kid crashing a car. The parents were away on vacation, and they had left their older kids, 17, 16, at home. And they came home to find out that not only had one of their cars been wrecked, but both of their cars had been wrecked in the same accident. Apparently, the kid had come home and had accidentally gunned it or something, and gunned the one car into the other car. And the front end of the one car was accordion, and the side of the other car was buckled in. So that's a fun one to try to explain to the insurance company. Yeah, we have a claim to make, not on just the one car, on both cars. Same accident. Yeah.
From the teenage child.
Yeah.
Those rates didn't just stay the same.
My brother was backing out of my parents' driveway, and my car was parked like kind of next to it. And my mom was telling him as he walked out the door, "Don't hit your sister's car." And he gets in the car and just hits it right. I won't, Mom. And then hits it, just smashes it. So it's got to have this body work done. It's got to be fixed. And so my mom makes him pay for half of it because it's like a $700 job. And my mom makes him pay for half of it from the earnings from his summer job. He's got to help pay for this car. 3 days later, I get in an accident with a semi-truck, totaled.
Oh.
Oh, man.
My brother was just devastated.
Well, he had to pay for half of it, but he did 100% of the damage.
Right, but my
That's
mom...
actually a pretty good deal.
Yeah,
Well, the good news is it sounds like the insurance company paid for all of it.
that's true.
Second time.
That's true. It was totaled. Yeah. Oh, man.
Ouch.
My very first car, for the first couple of years, my dad always made sure I took care of all the servicing of it and everything. And then they moved for work, which is also a great way to get rid of your kids, actually, which you just move while they're in college. But otherwise, they'd probably still be living with them. But
Yeah,
so,
Tom, did they tell you they were moving, or did they just leave in the night?
almost the job.
Tom, we're moving you up to college, but it's funny how we have this big truck with us, too. He's got no stuff.
It's a great. I plan on doing the same when my kids are old enough. I'm just gonna move.
American citizen.
So after he left, I was in charge of my car, and after about 2 more years of driving it, all of a sudden the car just stopped working completely. We got towed into the dealership, and they looked at it, and they said the engine's completely seized up. They said, "When's the last time you got an oil change?" And I didn't. Because I just thought that was something you did to, like, it would improve your engine. I didn't realize this was required maintenance. So they said the engine actually just fused to itself after years of not ever changing oil. So that was the end of my very first car.
Without checking
Oh, my gosh.
But you're right, Tom. It does improve the engine.
Yeah. That's a good point.
It would have been much better. Yeah.
a few pints would have really, a few
Drastically
quarts would have made it. It's a direct correlation, even. Causation. That's pretty
So, changing notes a little bit, something that probably shouldn't go with driving, drinking. So, a Canadian personal finance story. It's sort of a rite of passage in Manitoba, maybe in the rest of Canada as well, to go across the U.S. border for various things. It's like this whole new world. It's like flying to Mars, right? There's all these great new shiny things. And the first thing my buddies noticed when I brought them down there to watch the World Junior Hockey Championships in Grand Forks, North Dakota, was the price of beer. The price of beer was a quarter of what it was in Canada. And they just thought this was incredible. We go into the liquor mart, and like half the place is Canadians who've made this trek to watch hockey, and they're just loading up like shopping carts full of booze, right? Not knowing that they're going to have to pay some duty at the border. They're not worried. They're going to drink it tonight, whatever. My one buddy sees how cheap cigarettes are and goes, God, maybe I should start smoking. And so
Wise
so
financial
which
choice.
one of my
Whoa.
other friends, who's already got a log of chewing tobacco in his hand, says, I don't know how any American lives past 40. If these prices were this low in Canada, we'd all be, alcoholics and have no livers left before we hit middle age. So we go to the game, kept things fairly in check, didn't want to make too much of a fools out of ourselves. But it snowed that night while we were in the game. So they actually shut down the highway headed back to Canada and trapped about 3,000 or 4,000 Canadians in Grand Forks, North Dakota, which, isn't really equipped to hold 3,000 or 4,000 of anyone, never mind drunk Canadians who just came from a hockey game. So there was a
Cars
few
full of alcohol and tobacco.
yeah. With shopping carts, exactly.
But no guns, right?
No guns, right? So that was a positive, and quite polite drunks, if I might say, most likely. But so they opened up the Alaris Center, the sort of the big football arena at UND there. And if you couldn't find a hotel room because they were already fully booked, you stayed at the Alaris Center. So of course everyone was like, well, let's just walk to every bar around and just do it. They actually ran out of beer for like a 5-mile radius of the Alaris Center that night. And every Canadian loved it. They were like, we drank this. My buddies were like, we need to come down every weekend. It's cheaper if we drive down here than to just buy it and drink it back home. So that was our stimulus for the American economy anyway.
So like
Or at least North Dakota.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't oil that caused their boom. It was just the realization of beer prices from all the Canadians.
So what are you bringing us all to FinCon, Kyle?
Yeah, we'll see. We usually have a tradition for those of you listening at FinCon where we try to sample beverages from each other's countries. So it's a cultural exchange, really, of many ideas and concepts.
and beer
But, like,
and alcohol.
It sounds highbrow. Sounds very highbrow.
Low and brow.
Low and brow. That's good. Nice shot. man.
So Joe, another story time with Joe or what?
I've got.
Running out.
I'm waiting for you guys. Well, while you're talking about alcohol, I'm thinking about one of my client meetings because now that I've been out of practice for 6 years, I can kind of talk about some of the funny things that happened in client meetings. I had a couple that were dating that came in, and they really wanted help with their budget. And they wanted me to help them get the budget in order, and they couldn't figure out where all their money was going. I said, have you ever written down? Have you ever kept track? And they said, no. So I sent them home for 2 weeks to keep track of their budget. And they came back, and they have all these line items filled in except one, which is $100 a week. And I'm going through, okay, let's cut your cable, let's look at the cell phone package, let's do all the normal things that you do. Are you getting a tax refund back? So we're cutting all this stuff. And I said, well, there's this line item that says nothing. I said, what is that? And Walt and Teresa both look at each other, and Teresa goes, I told you shouldn't have written it down. And now my interest in finding out what this is gone from here to here. And now I really want to know. And he's like, well, he said to write down everything. I said, well, what is that? And Teresa goes, it's entertainment. And I said, oh, okay. Well, let's just find out. Like if it's $100 a week you're spending on entertainment, like is that going to movies? Because I'm the guy that doesn't understand. There's a timeshare pitch going on. I've got no idea where this trade's headed at all. Like, oh, okay. If that's going to movies, that's a lot of movies. But hey, $100 a week, we'll cut that entertainment budget. Is it going out to dinner? And they kind of pause. And then Teresa looks at Walt and says, "You tell him." And Walt says, "That's pot." And I go, "Excuse me?" Because I'm thinking two things. I'm like, he didn't just say that's pot, number one. And number two, $100 a week for pot? Holy cow.
They're well entertained.
In both cases. So that's the only time in my 16-year career I had anybody who had a pot budget.
This actually sounds pretty responsible.
It is.
Hey,
you're-
good for them.
Look,
Good for them.
If you're entertaining so much, you're probably going to forget.
That's right. Well, we cut it to $50 a week, and they saved bundles of money and still felt great.
Great way to save money. Cut back on the drugs and you'll be good.
I imagine the crossover on that Venn diagram between like $100 a week pop budget and people that have a budget. There's not a lot of overlap there. Like, kudos to them for pulling that off, really, when you think about the motivational factors there.
Right. Not only was it the only time you ever heard about that, but that was really the only time it ever happened in financial history.
I don't think I could tell the financial planner that line item.
Is it tax deductible?
Well, it
Don't
could
find
be
us
as
a
part of
It's
your
a
business.
medical expense. I need it. Yeah.
That's right.
Probably could
Medicinal.
be nowadays, but
Move to Colorado, open a business.
It's a charitable deduction because I feel charitable after.
I gave the money to the guy in the corner. He was just nice enough to give me this back.
Who knew?
It's
Yeah,
awesome.
And then I had an older couple that was really worried, and I was a brand new financial advisor. And when you're a brand new financial advisor, you will talk to anyone pretty much with a pulse. Like, if you can fog a beer, come on in, and I'll see if I can help. But when you're, so you're dealing with all types of people, and I call these people because they're worried. This guy says he's worried about his estate planning. And when you hear two words as a financial advisor, you hear the word estate followed by the word planning. That means somebody's got some big, big, big money. And as a brand new financial advisor, I'm thinking people are worried about estate planning. At that time in the U.S., if you had an estate of over, I think it was $1 million at that point, you had some serious estate taxes. So I'm thinking, wow, estate planning, first client over $1 million. So this older couple comes in, nicely dressed, look really cool. I'm all nervous. It's one of the first meetings I've ever had without having a senior advisor in with me. And I sit down with them and I said, okay, so tell me what your worry is. And they're very solemn. And the guy said, I'm really worried about our estate. We have some GM stock. I'm like, oh, that's great. Okay. So tell me what the problem is. And they said, well, we have 3 sons and we have 2 shares. And we don't know how to split it equally.
Tell them split the share in half, and whichever one says don't, they get the share. Is that how the story goes in the good book?
How did you resolve that?
I had to teach them about selling the share first, and then split the $23 that they would get.
The big money.
You wouldn't have them let it ride?
Somehow the government ended up with both shares at the end of the day.
Is there a dividend on that?
Yeah, 30 cents.
That compounds.
You can't imagine though, without being there, the letdown that I had.
How did they buy 2 shares of GM? Actually, now I'm sort of interested in the story. Like, did they have a brokerage account?
Let's
How
get them
long
on
were
the
they
show.
sitting on it? That's what I want to know. Is how long were they sitting on it?
I kind of picture that they had the actual paper stocks too.
Yeah, we got to invite them to the next Money
Yes.
Mastermind. Because that's the real mastermind. How did you buy 2 shares?
It is, yeah.
When I was a kid, I don't know how my grandmother did it, but she bought all his grandkids like I think 1 share of AT&T stock, like each. And I mean, I don't even, to this day, it's probably, I don't know where it is. I could probably claim it somewhere. I don't even know what it is. But we would get quarterly checks, and it would be like, I got 31 cents. This is awesome. If it was even that much.
But that's what I was going to say. When you're a kid, though, Glenn, that's cool, isn't it? When you get
Well,
30.
It's cool, but at the time, like, I didn't even have it was going to be more trouble for me to find a bank to cash this thing.
Yeah, but just the fact that I remember that, the fact that you could get 31 cents for doing nothing was so foreign to me. Like, that is great. It is amazing.
That is kind of cool.
Oh, you should have seen the look on my son's face when I showed him. I'm like, so I opened a savings account for you at ING when they were doing one of their specials. When you open your kid's account, they put $50 in or whatever. And I opened that up for him, and we put in some of his money, and a couple months later we looked at it, and it was the same thing. He was, oh my gosh, I've got $1, a whole other $1 that I got just for doing nothing, and he was so excited. So imagine when I opened up his IRA this year, and I was just like, now look at how much money you get for doing nothing. It's like $3 now, but he's just like, that's amazing.
Well, what's amazing is not so much that it's earning money, but that he's just sitting around and you keep opening these accounts for him.
He's really doing
Well, most of it's
That's the lesson. I mean,
well,
like,
most
how
of
do
it's
you get
his
in on
money that he has to put in. I make him.
Smart
I
boy,
make
smart
him.
boy.
No.
Yeah.
I make him put his money
He's like,
in
I'm going to
accounts.
sit back, look cute, and she's going to just keep opening these accounts. And she thinks I'm amused about the
Like,
dividends.
Sure. There's the Warren Buffett story where the 8-year-old has a paper route. The hell with that. Like, just sit on your couch and
Mom's buying me
get your
stuff.
mom, mom, who's a financial blogger, to just save that for you. And
I'm done.
No. It's his money. It's his money. He has to put his money in. He has this little thing. He has to do 20% savings. And he has to put in his charity. And then he gets the 70% that's left over to spend on what he wants. So, no, it's not just free money that I put in there because I want to make that very clear. It's his money.
It's funny, Miranda, you're talking about 20% and trying to encourage savings. When I teach a couple of business courses in school, when we do taxes, it's always hilarious to see the look on the kid's face when we go over their check stub and how much personal tax they have to pay. And, of course, they get that back. But this year was one of the first years I got to teach an entrepreneurship course. And so I think I've talked in the show that kids made companies, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, well, you're going to get charged a 10% tax. You can pick whatever charity you want to give it to, but your company has to pay a 10% tax. And they were outraged at this. They're like, what do you mean I have to give up 10% of my profit? This is crazy. And I'm like, well, what's crazy is that you'd actually give up far more than this. And so then we actually went in and looked at their corporate taxation rates and different things. But in the end, it was okay. They found some hockey charity to donate it to, kids sport, so kids could play hockey and stuff. But yeah, that tax realization on how percentages work, that's always pretty interesting to watch on their faces.
I had a client, a really cool client, who was so worried about that, Kyle, that he would give his kids an allowance and then he would withhold taxes from it. specifically to make his kids angry. And
I love it.
Amazing.
They turn them into conservatives young, yeah.
It's amazing. Well, I made my son when he was like, I don't have enough money to buy this thing and I want to buy it. And I'm like, okay. He's like, can I set up a payment plan? I just love how he talks like this. Can I set up a payment plan? I'm like, sure. Do you know how payment plans work in the real world? He's like, not really. And I'm like, well, you pay interest. So if you want to set up a payment plan, that's cool, but I'm going to charge you interest. So let's sit down and figure out how much you're going to repay me at the end of this payment plan. He did
Let's
it.
talk to Mommy Loan Shark.
Yeah.
That's right. What else? I only charged him a couple, 2-3%. It's not that bad.
It is funny when it comes to money. If you haven't been taught as a kid how money works and how credit and interest works and all that kind of stuff, you can really be completely clueless when you get into college or whatever. I don't know if you guys saw in the news this week about this girl who had a $90,000 or $100,000 college fund from her grandparents, and she blew it all within, I think, 2 years of going to school by using all the money for a trip to Europe, entertainment clothes. Yeah, all sorts of crazy stuff. And when the money was all gone, here she was she called this radio show. That's how it kind of came to light. And, she was upset because her parents weren't going to help her pay for the rest of her school after she had blown almost $100,000. And then finally they said that, basically the people on the show said, you need to probably get a job to help pay for this. And she was basically outraged that people would think that she would work a job while she's going to school. And, her parents wouldn't lend her the money unless she did get a job or co-sign a loan for her unless she agreed to get a job. So finally, I think she ended up getting a job so she could help pay for her own schooling. But really, it's kind of hilarious when you think about it. If people haven't been taught this stuff, they're just so clueless sometimes, like how the real world actually works.
Well, and just the sense of entitlement. You know, you're going to pay for my college, and I'm going to blow all this money that I had already.
And you're going to give more.
Yeah, maybe
Exactly.
she had a $100 a week entertainment budget.
Right. If she actually kept the
Oh my
budget of those
gosh.
things, then maybe we wouldn't be in this situation.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys in school that had shopping problems. Every time they leave the house, they had to go shopping at the liquor mart.
Definitely a shopping problem.
You seem to be surrounded by a lot of those people, Kyle.
So, well, and now with like the online shopping, you don't even have to leave the house. I know somebody who used to spend all sorts of money doing online shopping without even leaving the house. So, you know, whatever.
I'm sure that's pretty common though nowadays.
Oh yeah.
I can't imagine. I mean, I just can't imagine sitting in front of the Home Shopping Network going, "Oh, I can't wait for that jewelry deal. They're telling me it's up in 7 minutes."
I'm always fascinated by the knife deals.
Then
Oh my gosh. Oh my
It's like-
gosh.
It's like
I
the
had a
most
huge
relaxing
shopping
thing
channel
to watch
problem.
these guys talk about, and you're just like, huh.
I go to my happy place, imagine myself wielding the blade, right?
You know, it's like 3 a.m. You're bleary eyed. It's like, that's not a bad deal. And the next time I go camping, I'm totally prepared.
Oh, that's that Jerry Seinfeld joke. You're only watching TV because your whole body's asleep except your finger that's clicking the channels.
Oh my gosh. Well, no, we went with my parents are getting ready for a trip to Alaska, and we went with them to Cabela's just to see what stuff was there to, you know, help them outfit what they were going to do. And my son and I just started getting just really sidetracked by all the cool gear, and then the knife tape, you know, the big knife counter where it's just this glass case just full of sharp things. And I was just mesmerized. I was just sitting here, and Gavin's like, "How about this one?" I'm like, "That is not nearly big enough." And that is not nearly big enough to meet my needs. I need this one.
I need a longer one.
You defending yourself
Crocodile
from like
Dundee style.
Kyle's friends who come in on beer runs?
That's right.
I can't defend the border with that.
He drank all the beer. Give me a bigger knife, damn it.
I like to have a big knife that's serrated, that's just a step below a saw, because it helps you when you're doing the kindling. I'm practical that way.
Wow.
When you're sawing off part of the house.
But you know, I have
Started with
swords.
this tree.
I have a collection of swords that are on a moving truck, and if you come into my house and try to rob me, I'll probably attack you with one of my sharp swords. Just be
stand
warned.
your ground.
Note to
It's like
self.
a dare almost.
I also have a fine collection of daggers.
Well, there's one house off Peter's list.
Yeah.
Either that, I'll pull the Indiana Jones and just bring the gun, right? I'll bring a sword to a gunfight.
I have a gun too. It's okay.
Oh, okay.
I've got just one more epic Joe being a moron with money moment. And I was in Detroit, and I speaking of estate plans, I would refer people just to a couple estate planning attorneys that I knew were really good and wouldn't rip people off. But this one guy worked for a firm that had great basketball tickets, and so he invited me one day to sit in their company seats in the second row. And these are, you know how you've got like the upper bowl where I sit, like, you know, way at the top of the upper bowl, then there's a lower bowl, and then there's the seats that are on the court. We're sitting in the second row on the court. And when I saw the amount of money that was on the ticket, I couldn't believe that anybody would spend that amount of money on a basketball game. But hey, I wasn't paying, so I'm like, great, fantastic. So we sit down there, and what's funny is not only is that great, but they have people that will come and just take your order. So it'd been a bad day, and I apparently knew Kyle, so I was drinking like a fish. So I was.
How can you not with the price of beer?
Yeah, absolutely. I had to. I looked at the price of beer at the Pistons game, and it was only $10 a thing. And so
So average then.
Much better than at the Knicks games.
this This is maybe like, I mean, this is an old story. There was a guy playing for the Pistons at that time. His name was Grant Hill, and Grant was for people who know basketball, they'll know that name. He was a great player, but he was their best player, and he had just introduced this new line of shoes called the Fila Hills, and as they come out to warm up, they're these white shoes that had just a zipper like right up the middle of the shoe. It was really weird. There was a zipper up the middle of the shoe, and they were kind of a high top. And so he's doing, they're doing these drills before the game, and we're just starting to drink. And I said to the state attorney, John, I said, yeah, I'm not sure if I like those shoes. And John's like, yeah, those are pretty strange shoes. And then we have a few more drinks, and near the end of halftime, or excuse me, just before halftime,
I love where this is going.
Grant Hill's going to inbound the ball like right here in front of me, right? There's the people in front of me, and he's going to inbound the ball right there. And I'm looking at his shoes, and I said, yeah, I don't know, man. And I kind of try to whisper, but I've had a lot of alcohol. And I said, I don't know. I don't know about those shoes, man. I'm not sure. And then we have even more to drink during halftime. And we keep talking about the shoes. Those are the weirdest looking. Why would anybody wear those? Those are just. And so they come out to do their little deal after halftime, where they're getting ready for the second half. And Grant Hills runs by us, and I said, all right, I've decided. Like, I'm holding up my beer, and I go, okay, I've decided. I think those are some ugly ass shoes. And then, and the attorney and I, we both start laughing together. And I said, I don't know though. You think he gets paid to wear them? And the dude in front of me turns around, and his face is bright red, and he goes, hell yeah, he does. And if you ever want to know how much, just call me sometime. And it's the Fila Rep.
Oh
boy.
And then that's when I took my shoe and I put it right.
Yeah, right. No doubt.
But to be fair, maybe you knew something that he didn't. Because didn't Grant Hill have to leave the game because he had ankle problems?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I did.
My zippers aren't a good idea.
I get the laugh there.
I bought tennis shoes not tennis shoes, but running shoes with the zippers, like for working out or whatever. Stupidest $35 I've ever spent.
I had the pump, and it worked,
well.
man. My vertical went from like 4 inches to 5.
Amazing.
I just can't imagine this guy the whole game, like trying to keep it to himself as John and I are just getting more and more loaded, ripping his product.
I thought you were going to say, like, Grant turned to you guys and said, like, yeah, they are paying me, or I wouldn't be wearing these either. Like, that's probably what
I was kind of waiting for to the point where the two of you were like, you know what, those shoes are really awesome. Let's get a pair. And then you
like
the
a
next day
tattoo.
you sober up and you're like, why am I wearing these
$200.
Wake up in the morning with these white zippered shoes.
I can't get them off.
Man, it must have been a good night.
Reminds me back when I used to take the train to go into Manhattan to hang out, and back in New York, wasn't always as cleaned up as it was, and there'd be lots of people on the trains, doing their little shtick. And one time this guy comes over and he's doing his whole little thing, and he ends with, "All right, everyone, you know what the best nation is, right?" And everybody's like, "Oh God, what?" He's like, "A donation." And puts out his hat.
Of course.
That's fantastic.
That's the best line ever.
Wow. The pun there is just amazing.
Hey, you know what? It worked. People gave him money.
I would have.
You just got to make somebody laugh.
Very clever.
On that note, we've had an hour of fun here. So, usually we go around and we kind of wrap and have a final word. But, this whole episode was our final words on different stories. Kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense now to do that. So, I'm just going to say, we'll just skip over that page and, say thank you so much, Joe, for joining us tonight. And, for those 2 or 3 people who maybe just got computers and don't know what podcasting is, Why don't and because they're definitely watching our show because they don't know any better yet. Tell them about what you do and tell them a little bit about Stacking Benjamins.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me, guys. This was a blast. Our show, Stacking Benjamins, is actually a lot like this version of actually, we don't have this much fun. We have a lot of fun, but we don't have this much fun. But the difference is you guys try to teach stuff, and you do a great job at teaching people stuff about finance. And with our show, if we teach you anything about finance ever, we made a huge mistake. Our goal is to be surround sound, where we talk about headlines that are going on, and really, where CNBC will take a headline, these financial shows will take a headline, and they'll tell you all the things you got to do now. We'll take it from a better financial planning point of view and say, here's 3 headlines, and here's why you probably don't have to do anything. Here's really what you should do. So we get rid of some of the financial, what's that Carl Richards calls it, financial pornography. And we have fun roundtables. We have a good time, and for people that like to stay till the end, we even talk about movies. So we do a little bit of everything on Stacking Benjamins 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
And I understand you really have like the top-notch guests. I mean, really the cream of the crop. Only the best people in the world are on your show.
You.
Oh crap!
Oh, yeah, that's right. We were on the show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we have had some great guests. We've been very lucky there. We've had cool financial guests and non-financial guests. I really liked a guy, Austin Kleon, for people that know him. He wrote a great book called Steal Like an Artist. He is an artist, but he talks to business people about learning creativity. That was one of my favorite episodes. Don Hahn, who is the producer of not only Maleficent that came out last year, but The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast. He talked about creativity in business. I love that stuff. But Gene Chatsky, Carl Richards, Rick Edelman, David Bach, the Automatic Millionaire, has been on. So we've been very lucky. I can't figure out why they want to keep coming on my show, but I'm not complaining.
We set the table for you there.
That you do,
obviously. No, it's definitely a fun show. Fun to be on, fun to listen to.
Thanks.
And, thank you again, Joe, for coming in and blessing our listeners with your stories. And for everybody else out there, until next week, be good with your money.
Thanks for joining us on the Money Mastermind Show. Get more information at moneymastermindshow.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Google+.